So far in the cognitive approach unit, we have covered schemas, which are the basic structures of cognition, and these are what tend to have influence on other cognitive processes such as memory at different stages. We have also learned a significant amount about memory, including models that explain its structure and its processing, the reliability of memory based on its reconstructive nature, and also how emotions influence memory, and if this makes memory vivid or not. We've also seen that cognition, such as memory, have implications on areas such as criminal justice. While eyewitness testimonies still play an important role in the jury's decision of whether a person is guilty or not guilty, it is not unknown that testimonies can be faulty. And even if a testimony is accurate and reliable, does this then mean that the jury is capable of making the right decision? Thinking and decision making is going to be the next topic we will be looking at to investigate how people may think and make decisions, and are these reliable or are they biased? To begin with, I will be conducting a quick survey on criminal justice. The aim is to investigate what it takes to pay back society for committing certain offenses. So I'm going to present to you 3 different cases of people who have been convicted and have been found guilty for various crimes. Your task is going to be to act as a judge and decide what length of sentence, basically how many years the person has to serve for the and you think is appropriate for that person for that particular offense. Okay, so if there has been a theft, are they supposed to get 3 years or are they supposed to get 7 years? Okay, so that is your task. What you will do is, as I go through each one of them, you will write it down on a piece of paper or just jot it down on your notebook, and after that you will share it on the class chat. Okay, the main chat. I will add a question for group 1 and I will add a question for group 2, so you will just add your responses over there. Okay, I will be providing the recommended number of years typically found for that crime, but feel free to use as less as no jail time, okay, or as much as a lifetime sentence. Okay, so even though I'm giving you a recommended sentence or how many years that person would typically get, if you think that this person shouldn't get any jail time or should get a whole lifetime of jail time, that is okay too. Okay, so it is up to you. It is your decision. So the first case, Dan was dealing in illegal drugs. He was arrested after a raid at his residence. Police discovered a meth lab and 4 pounds of methamphetamine alongside $6,000 in cash. He also has in his home 4 handguns and 1 automatic rifle. The recommended sentence for Dan is 3 years to 10 years. Please note down how many years Dan should spend in jail for his crimes. Moving on, JT was found guilty for robbing over 30 homes. His MO was waiting until a delivery truck dropped off packages and then stealing them from the porch. He later sold and pawned most of these items. His recommended number of jail time is 3 to 5 years for burglary. Please write down how many years you think JT should spend in jail for his crimes. And the final case, Sarah was convicted of manslaughter for leaving her 1-year-old child in a car while she drank in the afternoon in a bar. The outside temperature that day happened to be 98 degrees or 36 degrees in Celsius. So unfortunately, the child did pass away. The recommended sentence for her is between 7 years to 15 years for manslaughter. Please write down how many years you think Sarah should spend in jail for her crime. Okay, so you can now pause this video and write down, without changing your responses based on others, please write down on the chat if you're group 1 or if you're group 2, please write it down on the particular group that I've mentioned on the chat, okay? And do not alter your answers. It's okay. There is no wrong or right answer for this. So please write down or add your responses for JT, Dan, and Sarah, okay? What you're going to watch next is an explanation or of the procedure that this experiment is about, and it's from a Netflix TV show called 100 Humans, and it's a really interesting TV show that I thoroughly enjoy. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I have. So that was an interesting experiment. And like I said before, this clip is from the TV show 100 Humans on Netflix. It has so many different experiments that they conduct on human beings and try understanding different behaviors and different areas. So if you want to start a new TV show and want to find something that is more informative than just a soap opera, not that that's bad, but this is a great show to watch and I have enjoyed it. So yeah. um, so a major drawback from that procedure, which I hope you were able to identify, is of individual differences. The experiment used an independent measures design, which basically means that the people who were exposed to the attractive group were completely different from the people who were exposed to the unattractive group. And we know that individual differences can include stuff like the amount of empathy a person has, and this would definitely influence how much they are willing to, how many years they're willing to give or reduce for a person even, right? And the other thing is personal experiences of a certain crime. One of the participants in that video says that she's had her house broken into and lost a lot of her things that she worked so hard for. So an experience like that could definitely bias her judgment of how many years a person needs to be sent away to jail for, okay? So there's a name for the phenomenon that you just experienced, and it is what we refer to as the halo effect. The halo effect is the tendency to allow one's impression that are created in one area to influence their opinion in another area. So if it was good looks, you assume then that they are smart, they are nice, they are capable, they are hardworking. So that one judgment of their good looks influence so many different areas. Okay. So when one group saw attractive individuals, their overall judgment of something as bad as manslaughter was influenced by that good look, okay, or their good looks. So the halo effect plays an important role and emphasizes on the importance of first impressions. If a person's first impression of you is poor or is negative, it is likely to influence the way they see you following that. And this can be quite resistant to change because human beings, again, are cognitive misers. It's easier for us to stick to first impressions that we've created and find evidence that supports that first impression, right? So it would then take significant effort for us to change that first impression. Okay, and this would require some amount of cognitive dissonance. If there was more and more evidence suggesting against that first impression, it would cause cognitive dissonance, which is the fact, like, current evidence not matching previous evidence or beliefs that you hold. Okay, and you know, like stuff like interviews, first days at school, all of these are first impressions, and that is why a lot of people emphasize on being presentable, looking sharp, having a haircut before you go for an interview, being polite, because it is this first impression that influences how people view you and how they make a decision on whether you're suitable for that job or not, or whether you're suitable for that university or not. So, yeah, first impressions play an important role. If any of you took part in the current DP2's experiment last year, they investigated the role of tone of voice, again, something that can influence your first impression, uh, in students' perception of a teacher's likability. Okay, and they basically deceived all the participants into believing that the school was hiring a new French teacher and that she was just introducing herself to them, or to the students and to you if you were a participant, to make the judgment whether she was likable enough and whether she was suitable for AIC. And yes, it was deception, but what we did find was that a positive tone of voice definitely influenced, and this confirmed the DP2's hypothesis that a positive tone of voice did influence how the teacher was perceived, and that this was more positive than that of the same teacher who presented herself with a negative tone of voice. Okay, so moving on. Philosophers from ancient times have spent a lot of time pondering and trying to understand our thought processes. You may be familiar with sayings such as, I think, therefore I am, and what I see is what I perceive. And that is what naive realism is claiming. Okay, the second one, what I see is what I perceive. Philosophically, realism is the idea that our senses allow us to perceive stimuli directly without any intervening processes. In social psychology, it is human tendency to believe that everyone views the world objectively. This also implicates that what we see is what we perceive. So, in essence, this means that people view the world objectively without any biases, without any consideration of their past experiences. So this then means that everyone can come to the same conclusion if they were given the same information and interpret it rationally. It is also assuming that everyone shares the same views, okay? And if they're not able to come to the same conclusions and have the same views, they are being ignorant, irrational, and or biased. And we know that human beings are far from not biased, right? And they are irrational, and that they do have the tendency to ignore certain information because it's easier just to ignore that and not keep it in consideration when you're thinking and when you're making a decision. Okay, again, going back to cognitive misers. So this image that I've chosen to represent naive realism is kind of like horses who have been like blocked off their periphery vision, so that they don't get distracted and only move in one direction. Okay, and that's kind of how I view naive realism. It's quite reductionist, and it almost, like, more than reductionist, it makes it feel like human beings are capable of thinking the same way and thinking rationally, which is quite unrealistic. And the matter of acceptance and truth here is that all human beings, like I said, are biased, are irrational, and do tend to ignore information that can be important because it takes more effort to keep that in mind and to use that information. There are two categories of models of thinking and decision making. The first are normative models, which emphasize on how people should think and should make decisions. It assumes that we have infinite time and resources and defines thinking as binaries of right and wrong, effective and ineffective, correct and incorrect. And we know that a lot of the times binaries are not representative of reality. A lot of the times there's a lot of gray area, and there aren't right or wrongs, and moral dilemmas are a very good example of that, because what might be right to one person is not right to the other. And also, it's relative. So there is a lot of gray area, and normative models, in that sense, are quite reductionist. These models, again, are simplistic in that they assume that human beings think in terms of formal logic, probabilities, and utility of costs and benefits, right? At the very beginning of this unit, when you were asked to choose between the best outcome for a coronavirus projection of death and lives saved, all of you were influenced based on a basic framing effect. Okay? So from this, we know that we cannot reduce or even inflate human decisions to such absolute logic. Okay? We all have had past experiences, we have set schemas, have cultural and societal norms and rules that we have to adhere to, all of which make the idea of should and musts of thinking and decision making absolutely unrealistic. It is not possible for us to apply such models into the way that people actually make decisions. Okay, this then leads us to the second category of models, which are descriptive models. And the aim of this and the focus of this is to describe, right, and attempt to explain what people actually do to think and make decisions in real life situations. Okay, formal logic is almost like a utopian idea. Actually, it might not even be utopian, because some of it might then result in very harsh and extreme decisions. But what do human beings actually do to make their decisions and think in real life, in everyday, day to day basis? Okay, and that is what descriptive models try achieving. And that is going to be the focus of the rest of this unit. We will be focusing on descriptive models because they're more applicable. And these models are usually tested based on how well they fit observed data on various samples of participants who have had to make a decision regarding something. Okay, so they try applying this model into real life situations and seeing whether it is valid or not. The first model that we will be looking at is the theory of reasoned action and planned behavior. For now, you will read page 151 to 153 in Alexei Popov's Oxford book, which goes through this model. You will make notes and send a picture of your notes, either a screenshot or a picture of your notebook. Once you're done with that, you will also send me a voice note explaining the theory in your own words. Okay, so this is your task for this class. Once you're done, you can send me your picture and your voice note on personal chat on Teams. And yeah, so you will spend the rest of class doing this. And if you haven't finished, please do it for homework before tomorrow.